If someone had asked me what love looked like, I would have said, steady, patient, the kind you build brick by brick. Not fireworks, but firewood, something you tend to, something that keeps you warm in winter. That's what I thought I was doing with Claire. I met her at a fundraiser for a local animal shelter. She was helping organize the event, hair pulled back, sleeves rolled up, laughing like she meant it. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. That alone impressed me. She had a son, Mason, 5 years old at the time, clinging to her leg like she was his whole world. I didn't hesitate. I asked her out that same day. And from there, things moved slowly but surely. She was cautious, understandably. But I made it clear I wasn't looking for a fling. I was in it for real. Our first date turned into many. Then dinners turned into overnights, overnights into weekends, and eventually, I moved into their modest 2-bedroom home in the suburbs. It wasn't just about love. It was about building something that lasted. I stepped into the role of a husband and a father without complaint. I picked up extra hours at work, paid off Claire's car loan, started saving for a college fund for Mason. I coached his little league team, helped with homework, made pancakes on Sundays. Claire stayed home most days. She said it was better for Mason that way. I agreed. I wanted them to feel secure, to know that I had their back no matter what. I didn't count the hours or the money. That wasn't the point. The point was we were a family, and family meant showing up. I believed in us. Even when Claire stopped saying thank you. Even when Mason stopped looking up when I walked into the room. I told myself love wasn't about getting, it was about giving. But even firewood needs tending, or it burns out. First, it was little things. A look that lingered too long on her phone when I walked in. The way she laughed harder at other people's jokes than mine. The silence at dinner stretching just a bit too long. Mason, once attached to my side, started retreating. He rolled his eyes when I asked about school. Slammed the door when I told him to clean up. Claire always shrugged it off. He's just going through a phase, she'd say. Don't take it personally. But it felt personal. I'd come home after 10-hour shifts, groceries in one hand, takeout in the other, and find them both in the living room. Mason on his tablet, Claire watching some reality show. Not a glance my way. No, how was your day? Just, did you remember to get oat milk? I kept trying. Took Mason to the batting cages. Bought Claire the earrings she'd once admired in a store window. Planned weekend trips. Only to have them canceled last minute because Mason had a sleepover or Claire wasn't feeling it. It was like trying to hug smoke. Still, I made excuses. Told myself it was stress. Parenting was hard. Relationships go through seasons. I just had to hold on. Be patient. Give more. So I did. I took on more shifts. Picked up the slack at home. Paid for summer camp, soccer gear, braces. Every time I looked at Claire, I searched for a spark. Something to remind me that we were still in this together. But her eyes didn't meet mine anymore. Not really. They slid past, like I was a fixture in the house, not a person. And when Mason muttered, "You're not my real dad anyway," under his breath one evening, Claire didn't correct him. She didn't say a word. That silence cut deeper than anything he could have said. It happened on a Sunday. Claire had invited friends over for brunch. Couples we barely saw. People who always looked at me like I didn't quite belong. Cooked. Set the table. Picked up fresh flowers. I even ironed the cloth napkins. Halfway through the meal, Mason walked in, barefoot and loud, and dropped himself onto the couch in full view of everyone. His shirt was stained. Hair a mess. One of Claire's friends smiled awkwardly. Tough morning, Mason shrugged. Just trying to survive this boring house. The room chuckled. Claire didn't. She said without looking at me, "Well, it's not like this place ever felt like home. Really? We just made do." I froze. Someone changed the subject, but the words hung in the air like smoke. Not like home. Just made do. After the guests left, I asked her what she meant. She didn't even pause. I meant what I said. This has never really felt like ours. You came in and tried to fix everything like we were broken. I stared at her, stunned. I gave everything I had to make it better. She rolled her eyes. Yeah, well, Maybe we didn't need fixing. That night, I sat in the garage for almost an hour. Just me and the cold silence of a house I'd paid to keep standing. And that was the first time the thought came, clear as crystal. What am I still doing here? Not in anger. Not even sadness. Just the sharp edge of clarity. Something in me cracked open. Not in despair, but in awakening. I had been holding this family up for so long. I never stopped to ask if anyone wanted me to. That night, I finally did. The next morning, I woke up different. Not angry. Not heartbroken. Just done. I started small. Quiet. I opened a new checking account and rerouted my direct deposit from work. The old account, the one Claire had access to, still got a few deposits. Enough to keep things running, but not enough to notice the shift right away. I began writing everything down. Every bill I paid. Every grocery run. Every transfer. Every Venmo. I made copies of receipts, backed up emails, kept screenshots of messages. At night, while Claire scrolled through her phone and Mason shouted at video games, I made plans. I listed storage units, researched apartments, reached out to old friends under the radar. I stopped offering to fix the sink. I didn't rush to help with homework. I started saying no. Gently at first, then firmly. The house noticed, but they didn't. Claire thought I was sulking. Mason called me a buzzkill. Let them. For the first time in years, I wasn't giving parts of myself away like they were endless. I was keeping them, guarding them. I walked slower, slept better. I stopped trying to earn love I'd already bought 100 times over. Every day I pulled back one thread. And every night, I felt a little more like myself. They didn't see it, but I did. Over the next 2 months, I became a ghost in my own life. I stopped doing the heavy lifting, literally and emotionally. I no longer volunteered for weekend projects, no longer offered extra cash when the credit card bill came up short. And still, no one really noticed. I started taking boxes to my car. One at a time. Clothes, tools, photo albums. The few things that were truly mine. At first I thought someone might say something. But Claire barely glanced up, and Mason was too absorbed in his screen to care. I left early for work and came home late. Took the long way back. Spent time in coffee shops instead of going straight home. The walls of that house began to feel like someone else's. Eventually, the payments stopped. Claire noticed that one. Hey, did something happen with the account? The cable bill didn't go through. I'll check, I said, but I didn't. 3 days later, gas is off. What's going on? I just looked at her. No explanation. No apology. Just silence. They weren't used to that. Then came the panic. Claire yelling over the phone to the utility companies. Mason complaining about the Wi-Fi. They blamed each other at first. I watched from across the room. Quiet, steady, almost peaceful. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. It was the moment I had waited for, not to hurt them, but to prove to myself that I could walk away. And when the yelling turned to silence and the silence turned to glances, I knew. They finally felt the absence of something they never valued. Me. The day I laid it all out came quicker than I expected. Claire cornered me in the kitchen, her voice tight. What's going on? You've been different, distant, and now the bills aren't paid? This isn't a game. I placed a folder on the table, neatly labeled, organized. Inside, printouts of bank transfers, receipts, credit card statements, Venmo logs. A full accounting of every dollar I'd put into that household for 5 years. Her mouth opened slightly, but she didn't speak. I wanted to believe this was a family, I said calmly. But families don't ignore each other. They don't use one another as stepping stones. Mason walked in, paused, glanced at the table. What's that? Proof, I said, not even looking at him. Proof that I was here, that I carried this place. And that I'm done. Claire flipped through the folder, silent. I'm not leaving out of spite, I continued. But I won't stay where I'm invisible. From now on, I'll help Mason directly if he needs it. But you and I, we're finished. Is this about that brunch? She snapped. One comment and you're walking out? I laughed. A short, dry sound. That wasn't the start. That was just the moment I stopped lying to myself. The weight lifted with every word. The house didn't feel like a trap anymore. Felt like a chapter closing. Claire didn't chase after me. Mason didn't say goodbye. And I didn't need them to. Moving out didn't feel like an escape. It felt like a return. Not to an old life, but to something I hadn't known I'd been missing. Myself. I found a small apartment downtown. 1 bedroom, noisy neighbors, cracked tile in the bathroom. But it was mine. Every lamp, every fork in the drawer, every choice mine. The first night there, I sat on the floor with a frozen dinner and a glass of cheap wine. No voices in the next room. No tension, no walking on eggshells. Just quiet. For the first time in years, it wasn't empty. It was peaceful. I started reading again. Went back to the gym. Took a weekend trip solo just because I could. My money stayed in my account. My thoughts stayed in my head, not picked apart or dismissed. I even laughed more. I didn't block Claire. I didn't erase Mason. I didn't need revenge or closure. What I needed was distance. Space to breathe, to think, to rebuild. One afternoon, I walked past a park where a dad was pushing a kid on a swing. I watched them for a minute, the boy laughing, the man smiling like it was the best part of his week. And instead of bitterness, I felt something else. Hope. Maybe the kind of connection was still possible. Maybe not now. Maybe not soon. But one day. Because now I knew what I brought to the table. And I knew I'd never let anyone treat me like I didn't matter again. I went home that evening, unlocked my door, and stood in the middle of the quiet. I took a deep breath and smiled. This life, with all its imperfections and quiet victories, was mine. And finally, I was free.